Who was Muhammad really? Not the media version, not the caricature created by those who never studied him, the actual historical human being, as documented by Islamic sources, non Muslim historians, and the archaeological record. The early life before prophethood. Muhammad ibn Abdullah was born in Mecca in approximately 570 CE. His father Abdullah died before he was born. His mother Amina died when he was only 6 years old. He was raised first by his grandfather Abd al Muttalib, and then, after his grandfather also died, by his uncle Abu Talib, a prominent man of the Quraysh tribe, but not a wealthy one. He grew up as an orphan in a society that was deeply and rigidly stratified by tribe and wealth. He had no special political inheritance, no army behind him, no accumulated riches. What he had from his earliest years was a reputation that money cannot buy and political power cannot manufacture. The people of Mecca called him Al-Amin, the trustworthy one. This was not a religious title conferred by any authority. It was a spontaneous social recognition given freely by his community, including people who would later become his most determined and bitter opponents of his character. His honesty in every business transaction, his absolute reliability in keeping every promise he made, his consistency in treating people with fairness regardless of their tribe or social status. At 25, he was hired by a wealthy and respected widow named Khadija bint Khuwaylid to lead one of her trading caravans to Syria. He was so honest, so skillful, and so successful in his conduct that she was deeply and genuinely impressed. She sent a trusted friend to inquire about his feelings toward her. He expressed his. She proposed marriage to him directly. She was 40 years old. He was 25. He accepted her proposal without hesitation. For the next 25 years of their marriage, he took no other wife, at a time and in a society where polygamy among successful and powerful men was entirely normal and universally expected. The Call, 610 CE. At the age of 40, Muhammad retreated, as he regularly did for extended periods of solitary reflection, to a cave on Mount Hira outside Mecca. The angel Jibril appeared to him and commanded him to read. He was overwhelmed and terrified. He ran home to Khadija trembling and said, "Cover me, cover me." She wrapped him in a cloak and held him until the trembling stopped. When he told her what had happened, she did not doubt him for a single moment. She said, "By God, God will never humiliate you. You maintain family ties. You carry the burdens of the weak. You give to those in need. You honor your guests. You help those who face calamities." The first person to believe in his prophethood was his wife, a woman, 15 years older than him, one of the most successful businesswomen in Mecca. Her belief was not based on obedience. It was based on 15 years of knowing exactly who he was. Continuing the story of Muhammad, who he really was. The Meccan period, 13 years of persecution. For 13 years after his first revelation, Muhammad preached in Mecca and faced sustained and increasingly violent persecution. His followers, particularly those who were poor, enslaved, or without powerful tribal protection, were treated with exceptional and deliberate cruelty designed to break them and force them to abandon their faith. Bilal ibn Rabah, a formerly enslaved man of Ethiopian origin, was placed by his master on the burning rocks of the Meccan desert with a heavy stone on his chest. He was told to renounce his faith or die. He said only one word, Ahad, one God, over and over under the unbearable weight and heat. This man would later be personally chosen by the Prophet as the first muezzin, the first voice to call the Muslim community to prayer. A formerly enslaved African man, the first voice of Islam. Muhammad himself was mocked relentlessly, called a madman, a liar, a poet corrupted by spirits. Garbage was thrown on him during prayer. His path was deliberately strewn with thorns. How did he respond? With patience, with consistent prayer. He sent the most vulnerable followers to Ethiopia, to the protection of a Christian king known for his justice, rather than ask them to endure further suffering. The migration, Hijra, 622 CE. After 13 years, the situation in Mecca became genuinely untenable. The Prophet's most powerful protectors had died one by one. A credible and carefully organized plot to assassinate him was uncovered. Representatives of every major tribe in Mecca were to strike simultaneously so that no single tribe could be held responsible for his death. With permission from God, Muhammad organized the migration to Medina, whose leaders had formally invited him and pledged to protect the Muslim community with their lives and their wealth. The journey was extremely dangerous. The Quraysh sent armed and mounted parties to intercept and kill him before he could reach Medina. Muhammad and his closest companion, Abu Bakr, hid in a cave on Mount Thawr for 3 days, while the search parties combed the surrounding mountains and valleys looking for them. He arrived in Medina not as a triumphant conquering leader, but as a refugee. He had left his home, his city, and everything he had known behind, building a civilization in Medina. In Medina, Muhammad created the Constitution of Medina, one of the earliest constitutional documents in human history, establishing collective security, mutual defense, freedom of religion, and clear legal processes for resolving disputes between different communities. For the first time in Arabian history, people of different faiths were bound together by civic agreement rather than blood. This migration, the Hijra, was so pivotal that the Islamic calendar counts year one from it. The final chapter of Muhammad's story, and what it tells us about who he truly was. The Wars, understanding the context. Between 624 and 630 CE, the Muslim community fought several battles against the Quraysh of Mecca. These battles are frequently cited as evidence of Muhammad's violent nature. The historical context is essential. The Muslims had been expelled from their homes. Their property had been confiscated. Members of their community had been tortured, imprisoned, and killed over more than a decade of sustained persecution. They were in Medina under continuous military threat from an enemy that had explicitly stated its intention to destroy them. The battles that followed were defensive responses. The Battle of Badr in 624, triggered by a Meccan army marching on Medina. The Battle of Uhud in 625, another Meccan army attacked. The Battle of the Trench in 627, a coalition of 10,000 soldiers besieged Medina for weeks. In none of these did Muhammad initiate unprovoked aggression against a community at peace with him. The Conquest of Mecca, 630 CE. In January 630 CE, Muhammad marched on Mecca with an army of 10,000. The city surrendered. And then he did something unprecedented in Arabian warfare. He declared a complete and unconditional general amnesty. The people of Mecca, who had persecuted him for over 20 years, who had killed his companions, who had driven him from his home, were forgiven entirely. He stood at the Kaaba and asked, "What do you think I will do with you?" They replied, "You are a noble brother." He said, "Go, you are all free. No executions, no revenge, no property confiscated." The man who had every reason to punish chose complete forgiveness. The Prophet as a human being. What strikes careful readers of the historical sources, Islamic and non-Islamic alike, is the consistent and unperformed humanity of Muhammad. He mended his own clothes. He helped with household chores in ways considered beneath men of his status. He played with children in the streets of Medina. He wept openly at the deaths of those he loved. He laughed genuinely at good humor. He had food preferences and dislikes. He was fully human in every aspect of his daily life. His death and legacy. Muhammad died in 632 CE at approximately 62 years old. He died in the arms of Aisha in their modest home adjacent to the mosque in Medina. He had no palace, no treasury. He died with essentially nothing material. He had changed the world permanently and left it as humbly as he had lived in it. Michael Hart, an American historian, ranked Muhammad as the most influential human being in history, an orphan from a desert city, who died with almost nothing, whose influence shapes nearly 2 billion lives today. That is who Muhammad really was. Like, if this changed your view, share with someone who only knows the media version. Subscribe, Truth Every Day. I'm Noor. This is Islam with Noor. Thank you for listening.